So let's make sure. Okay. All right. I think we are recording. Great. So the what do we want to do here? Right. So we're up to Gimel. Right. So that was the letter of the law. What I was describing before, a letter of the law, you can eat on Erev Shabbos, no problem. But we saw there's a mitzvah to really not to try not to have a seuda that we even have normally on the weekdays from the 9th hour and on, so about a quarter of the day, 3/4 of the day, 3/4 into the day, so that we come into Shabbos with a nice appetite. And now what we're going to see is that we have a custom that some used to have that really takes this idea of refraining from eating to an extreme. In Sif Gimel, the Gemara here says, Derech anshe mase lehis anos b'chol erev Shabbos. It is the way of people of great regard, I would say, that they really their actions are spectacular. That they would fast every Erev Shabbos. Every Friday, there were particular people who would fast. This is based on a Gemara, I think it's in Eruvin, and as well also in the Yerushalmi in the Maseches Tanis. And this is an interesting practice. I'm not aware of anybody who does this in my life that I know of. But the idea here is, take a look at the Mission of Sifkatan Yudches, Kedei shiyu te'evim le'echol balayla. It's just the extreme version of making sure that you have an appetite at night. The Bach and the Magen Avraham and many other achronim shiskimu de'ein lehisanos be'erev Shabbos. They all agree you shouldn't fast on Erev Shabbos. Kedei shelo yikanes leShabbos keshehu me'uneh, so that you don't enter into Shabbos in a state of affliction. You're not supposed to suffer on Shabbos. So why should you start Shabbos by suffering and clearly not having anything to eat? Unless a person is very, istanis is somebody who, in many different categories of halacha, where they can't follow the letter of the law because if they do, it ruins the rest of the halacha. It ruins the experience. So here, an example of this, by the way, not from this context. The person is in Shiva or even Shloshim. There's the halachas. You're not supposed to shower or to bathe during that time. But the Gemara says if a person is an istanis, it's very difficult for them to do such a thing. Then they're permitted to take a lukewarm shower during that period. Today, most Rabbanim that I'm aware of will tell a mourner that you can shower, lukewarm water, during Shiva and Shloshim. Take care of what you need to do to keep yourself clean on a basic level. Don't have any pleasure or enjoyment from those showers. So similarly here, a person is very particular. They only eat a few things, and then that ruins their appetite for the whole day. Then okay, that's a different story. If they eat anything during the day, they won't eat anything at night, with any kind of appetite. Then it's a really good minhag. It's a really nice minhag. If the fast doesn't create some sort of awful feeling where it's like maziklo, it's like completely gets you and damages you almost, the fast. Okay, I'm not aware of people taking this on today. I don't think that you have to look at this and say, I should do this. It's derech anshe masa. I think I've told the story too many times in this year, right? That the Rav Amital was one who would look at the Mission of Sifkatan and he would say, it says Bal Nefesh Yachmer Alatzmo. A really pious person should be machmer. He said, oh, great, that's not me. So I don't know. We have to start taking on every chumrah that you see that's mentioned in the Gemara. That's really not. It's not a halacha. It's like a practice that some people have. Okay, Sifkatan Daled. Im kibel alav lihisanos be'erev Shabbos. If a person accepts upon themselves to fast on Erev Shabbos, tzarich lehisanos ad seisa kochavim. then you need to fast until Tzeis HaKochavim, until it's certainly the next day, right? Tzeis HaKochavim is a time when we are sure that it is no longer the previous day. It's not the twilight period between the sunset and the stars emerging. And unless imlo sheperesh b'shas kabbalah satanis, unless when you accept upon yourself the fast, which would typically be done the mincha prior, right? The mincha of the previous day, you would usually, if you actually look at most sidurim today, you will see in the aftermath of the Elokai Nitzor paragraph at the end of Shemona Esrei, there's an addition that you can make if you're going to be taking on a fast, a private fast, not a time like a regular fast day, a personal fast day. You're supposed to like express that you're going to be doing a fast. So when you express that you're going to be doing a fast, you should make it clear that you're going to fast ad sheyashlimu hatzibur tfilasan, until after davening is over on Friday night, not until Tzeis HaKochavim. So you have to be very specific. When you say that you're going to fast, you can declare how long you're going to fast for. Okay, this is the Shulchan Aruch's explanation here. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the Mission of Sifkatan comments. Tzarech lehisanos, that you should need to fast until Tzeis. Ukamo im kibel tanis stam b'shar yemei hashavua. The dina hu ad Tzeis HaKochavim davka. It's like any other fast. When you take on a fast day, you fast until Tzeis HaKochavim. On a public fast day, we also fast until Tzeis HaKochavim. I'll explain in a second. I'm going to notice that our shul has a little bit of an earlier time that you'll find on a calendar as compared to other shuls. But it's not to say that we're not following Tzeis HaKochavim, but we're doing something a little bit different, and I'll explain shortly. It doesn't help that you simply davened Maariv, as he said, he talks about later in the laws of Tanis in Tafkuf Samach Beis. Hua din hacha. So too here, if you take on a fast on Erev Shabbos, you're fasting until Tzeis HaKochavim, because that's all the time that it could be Erev Shabbos. It's not considered to be a prohibition that you entered into Shabbos in a state of affliction. Even though on Shabbos, the day of Shabbos, you're not allowed to fast. It is prohibited to fast. You're not allowed to afflict yourself on Shabbos. It's just completely against everything that the day of Shabbos is about. It's a day where you're supposed to have oneg. You're supposed to delight in the day. And of course, fasting is quite the opposite. Sifkatan chaf, imlo sheperesh, unless you explicitly say and state that you're not going to fast till Tzeis HaKochavim. Va'az mutar afilu od hayom gadol. And then it's mutar even if it's the day is still, the sun is still shining, because people can daven Maariv in certain communities. We don't do it. We do it here in the summer. Where I grew up, we do it even earlier. We do it by Plag. We daven min Maariv on Friday night. We daven Friday night after Plag HaMincha. So you're talking about an hour and a quarter prior to the sun setting. So if you daven Maariv early, so that's fine. If you explicitly stated you're not going to fast past that point, you could break the fast because that's how you accepted the fast. If you make it tonight, if you make a condition and you're taking on a fast, you say, I'm only going to fast until Mincha Gedola. So that's 6.5 hours into the day. It's 1.5 hour after the midpoint of the day. So Mahani to know, then that stipulation works. It's not a problem at all. And what's funny is I don't think that makes a lot of sense on Erev Shabbos. The whole point is that you want to come into Shabbos with a good appetite. Saying that I'm going to fast for the first half of Friday, not sure really adds up logically. But okay, in theory it works. I don't know. I guess that decreases the amount you're going to eat on Friday. I would think that only increases the amount you eat in the second half of Friday and then ruins your appetite when you get to Shabbos. But okay, everyone has a different calculation. Fine. So that is the Shulchan Aruch and the Mission of Sifkatan explanation of the Shulchan Aruch's words. Let's take a look now at the Ramah. So we're on the next page, from at least in my edition, from where the Shulchan Aruch was. The Rama writes, the Yesh Omrim, there are those that say, Delo Yashlim, you should not complete the fast. Ela miyad sheyotzim mibeis hakneses yochal. Right after you end Ma'ariv and you go home, you should make Kiddush right away when you get home. No problem, even though it's not Tzeisa Kochavim yet. Lachain, let's take a look at the next line as well in the Rama. Lachain betanis yachid lo yashlim. When you're talking about a personal fast day, you should not complete it till Tzeisa Kochavim, according to this Yesh Omrim opinion. V'tov lefarish came b'shas kabbalah satanis. It's better if you can express this, in words when you take on the fast, the mincha before. Uvetanis sibur, when it's a public fast day, the only day that can fall out on only fast day that can fall out on a Friday is Asara B'Teves. The other ones, the way the calendar is set, cannot fall out on a Friday. Presumably prior to the establishment of the calendar in the early Talmudic period, the calendar was not fixed, and so you probably could have had any fast day fall out on a Friday. So this was more of a question in those days, but you could still have one public fast day. So what do we do? So the Rama writes here, Yashlim, you're supposed to complete the fast until Tzeisa Kochavim, v'hachay nahug, and he says that's our practice here in the Ashkenazi community. That is our practice today here in the Young Israel Scarsdale and every community that I'm aware of in the Orthodox world, is that on our Asara B'Teves that falls out on a Friday, you complete the fast until Tzeisa Kochavim. Now the question is here, what is that time? So I'm just going to take a brief aside to explain what we do in our. I'm not going to spend too much time. When we get to the laws of Tanis in 6 or 7 years, we'll talk more about it. But the basic calculation is that the Tzeisa Kochavim that we usually consider for, let's say, the time that Shabbos ends, or the time that Yom Kippur ends, or the time that we say Kriya Shema, is different, because those mitzvahs that I just mentioned are D'oraisa mitzvahs. And so you have to make sure that it's really Tzeisa Kochavim, which is defined by the Gemara as the emergence of 3 stars. Now the Gemara defines it as and this year we talked about at some point, the beginning of the pandemic, we had a shir about this on Zoom. We were talking about something in the laws of Kriya Shema Shel Arvis, before we got to Hilchot Shabbat. We talked about that Tzeisa Kochavim is defined in the Gemara as 3 small stars emerging, right? So now the question is, or the problem is that the Gemara doesn't spell this out, but the Rishonim do afterwards. We don't know how to tell the difference between small stars and medium stars. So you know what we do? We wait until there are big stars, so that you're for sure able to know that it's nighttime. It's unclear also what's meant by the Gemara. Sorry, I got it the wrong way. It's defined as 3 big stars. Sorry, because those are easier to see. But what's the difference between a big star and a medium star is not clear, so we wait till small stars come out. Sorry, that's the latest. That's going to be the later one. What were probably these large stars? It's not crazy to think that there was probably a reference to like being able to see planets, that of course seem like stars and are much bigger than stars. But the bottom line is we wait until a much later time. So when it comes to a fast day, that is midrabanan. All the other fasts except for Yom Kippur are midrabanan. The end time that we here have at the shul, and many shuls, not every shul, many shuls will wait till that time, like that the Kriya Shema time. We wait a shorter time of Tzeisa Kochavim, which is based on some calculations in the Gemara about what the sky looks like at the time of Tzeisa Kochavim. It's dark on one side of the sky. There's a little bit of light on the lower horizon, on the horizon side of the western sky. So we have a different calculation. So that's why you'll see that our fast days end sometimes earlier than our neighbors, because it's based on an earlier calculation of Tzeisa Kochavim, because it's a halacha midrabanan, and so likely that is the proper calculation of Tzeisa Kochavim. It doesn't have to be pitch black to be defined as Tzeisa Kochavim. Clearly, from the Gemara, that is the case. So just understand when you see a difference between ours and someone else's, know that we're probably, the reason is that on a rabbinic fast day, many have the custom not to go all the way till the Deoraisa time for Tzei Kocha. Okay. So on Shabbos, we do the same thing when we have Asar B'Teves. So it's not a crazy long fast into into nighttime. Honestly, every time that it's happened in a few years that I've been here, it's happened I think twice. I got home and it was already time for Kiddush. So you can already make Kiddush. So it's not so bad. Okay, let's take a look at Chaf Aleph and then Chaf Beis as well. Chaf Aleph, Yesh Omrim Delo v'chulei v'chulei. There's another opinion that you can wait. You don't have to wait. You can just make Kiddush when you get home. Hi, Yesh Omrim Svir lehu devein tanis yachud devein tanis tzibur kagon asar b'teves shechal be'erev Shabbos lo yisane rak ad sheyetze mibeis hakneses. Das kvar kiblu Shabbos b'tfila shemispalin mil plag hamincha ve'elach. So he says here, this Yesh Omer opinion says that whether or not you have a Tanis Yachid or a Tanis Sibur, whether it's a private or a public fast day, and he gives the example here, like the 10th of Teves, that falls on a Friday. So you're not supposed to fast until, you only fast until the davening is over. Because at that point, you accepted Shabbos with your tefillos that you davened from. That could be from Plag HaMincha and so the sun could still be out when you've davened Marv and you've accepted Shabbos. And again, we're talking about shows Manios, so we're talking about, as he writes here, 11 hours minus a quarter, 10 3/4 hours. That's when you define the time of Plag HaMincha. That's the middle of the Mincha period between Mincha Katana, which is 9.5 hours, which is the time when the Korban Tamid Shel Beino Arbayim was historically brought, which is the ideal time for Mincha, is because it's in correspondence to that Tamid offering. And the 10 3/4 time was when the conclusion typically was of the service of the afternoon Tamid. Though by the letter of Torah law, you could still bring it until the evening. This becomes the genesis of the machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim about when is the latest time for Mincha. The Rabbi Yehuda thinks it's actually Plag HaMincha. The Chachamim say you can daven Mincha until dark. We talked about this again when we talked about the laws of Mincha and Mariv, probably a little over a year ago. He says here, and that is called completing the fast that you daven until after Kabbalah Shabbos. And the same halacha would apply for Erev Yom Tov when you daven Marv on Erev Yom Tov. At the beginning of Yom Tov, the fast is over and it's now Yom Tov, even though maybe the sun is still shining. And on the weekdays, Gamla Yesh Omrim, according to the Yesh Omrim, Lo Mikri Hashlama Satanis Ad Tzei Kochavim. Even this Yesh Omrim opinion would say on a weekday, you have to wait until Tzei Kochavim. The difference is when it comes to accepting Shabbos and accepting Yom Tov, the recitation of the prayers literally changes the status of the day in terms of Malacha being prohibited from having been previously permitted. So that change is so great that you could even change the day in terms of halacha. The greatest example of this is that you can make Kiddush when the sun is still shining. How could you make Kiddush? It says Shabbos L'Kacha. You would think, I said, this is Doraisa, we should wait until it's for sure dark to make Kiddush. The answer is we don't. The Gemara even has records stories of I think of Rav making Kiddush when the sun was still shining. How come? Because he davened. And when you accept Shabbos verbally, that has the power to almost change the day. So he says here so much so that it would end the fast as well. Umachriya harama, the Rama concludes and comes to a decision. The betanis yachid, when it comes to a private fast day, the hainu shahayachid gazar al atzmo tanis, a person privately decrees upon themselves they're going to take on a fast day. So lismoch al hayesh omrim, so they can rely upon the yesh omrim. The lo yashlim, they don't have to complete the fast on a Friday night. We call makom lechatchila tov yoser yifarish game b'shas kabbalah satanis. Okay, better if you could say it, verbally when you accept the fast on yourself. With the abad, the enzali kuva, but if you don't, it's not doesn't prevent you from following the yesh omrim. Uvetanis sibur, when it comes to a public fast day, chamira mizevet tzarich lahashlim kadin. That's more. We're more stringent about that, and we would say that you should fast by the letter of the law, which is until Tzeisa Kochavim. And even if you try to make a stipulation on the era of the fast day, that I'm not going to fast after davening is over. The law that doesn't work. The law this is not dependent upon you. The Tanis Tzibor is something that was accepted by the Jewish community. No one individual can change the laws or the timing of a Tanis Tzibor. Tanis Tzibor functions on its own calculation. That's different from a Tanis Yachid. But Tzibor shegazrel atzman Tanis mechadash be'eshvil eza inyan. If a community decrees upon itself a fast day for whatever reason, a new fast, and this I think could either be two things. Number one, it could be a fast day that's because of let's say a drought in Eretz Yisrael. Sometimes historically would declare fast days. Sounds like he also says it could be it sounds like you could read this also that it's referring to some other horrible thing that happened, and then the Jewish community decided we're going to institute a fast day in commemoration of something. So lo chamir kol kach umehani tonight. So as long as the sages who institute the fast set it up in such a way that if it were to fall out on Shabbos, that we don't fast past Kabbalah Shabbos, then that tonight should work. But the Tanis Tzibur that has already been instituted for thousands of years now, those don't change, and we're machmer to say maybe that was how it was accepted by the community, that even on a Friday it would be done all the way until Tzeisa Kochavim. Okay, again, that is the practice today is exactly as we talked about here in terms of a Tanis Tzibur. We do fast until Tzeisa Kochavim, even though it's already Shabbos. Chaf Beis Tanis Yachid. Tanis Yachid Nikra. What is Tanis? A personal fast day is called Misha Kibel al Atzmo Lisanos Be'erev Shabbos Zeh. Shadarko Lisanos B'chol Erev Shabbos O Erev Rosh Chodesh Chal Be'erev Shabbos. This is anybody who accepts upon themselves to fast every Erev Shabbos, like in the previous Sif, right? There are people who had that custom. Or you normally fast on every Erev Shabbos. Right, so either you accept upon yourself one time to do it, or you're a person who normally does it on Erev Shabbos, or Erev Rosh Chodesh that falls out on Erev Shabbos. Now, why would you fast on Erev Rosh Chodesh that falls out on Erev Shabbos? There's a practice. I was about to say strange, but that would not have been respectful. But there's a practice. I'm not an expert on Kabbalah. But I believe it's a Kabbalistic practice that came about Yom Kippur Katan. I've actually heard the phrase. I'll be honest, I've never actually researched one iota what it is until this week. Does anybody know what Yom Kippur Katan is? You're more knowledgeable than me, maybe. On this, you're more knowledgeable in many ways, but on this, maybe you know more than I do on Yom Kippur Katan also. So Yom Kippur Katan is an interesting practice. It goes back to the 16th century Tzvat. Okay, lots of interesting things happen from 16th century Tzvat. One of them that actually still stuck around to this day is Kabbalah Shabbos, actually, if I'm not mistaken, which started in the tefillah called Kabbalah Shabbos. There was no such thing as Kabbalah Shabbos in the times of the Gemara, the Tosfos. They never said Kabbalah Shabbos. They had a custom to say this was surely on Shabbos, and then they would daven Marav. They had a custom to say Bameh Madlikin already. That I think Bameh Madlikin came along. Shulchan Aruch already mentions Bameh Madlikin. Then they would daven Marav. They didn't have Lechadodi. They didn't have all the paragraphs of Sehel. They didn't say that. So this practice of Yom Kippur Katan is that if a Rosh Chodesh falls out on I'm already forgetting. I think it's on a Friday. If you have a Rosh Chodesh on a Friday, maybe it's on Shabbos. I can't remember now. Maybe if it falls on a Friday, what they would do is that they would fast on Thursdays. They would always fast on Thursdays. I'm just looking this up again. I don't want to butcher what I just learned the other day. Hold on. Kippur Katan. Here. I'll read you on Wikipedia, by the way. That's how I learned everything. So it's a practice that Jews observed on the day preceding each Rosh Chodesh. I didn't know this. Some Jews, every Erev Rosh Chodesh, fast. Um, the origins of this, again, are with 16th century Tzvat Kabbalist Moshe Cordovero. This began, it was included in Yitzchak Luria's Seder HaTfilah. So you have the Kabbalists really accepted this into their. So when Rosh Chodesh occurs on a Shabbos or a Sunday, the Yom Kippur Katan is Nidche, and they move it to Thursday. So he's referring to here, if let's say somebody, their custom is to fast every Erev Rosh Chodesh because of Yom Kippur Katan, and they didn't take upon themselves to move it to Thursday. So there was a subgroup of people who accepted Yom Kippur Katan, but didn't accept that you move it to Thursday to avoid fasting on a Friday. Okay. The Elu Ha'omer Misanim Gam came Yom Hey. There are those who, of course, they fast on Thursday when this happens, but assume that it's not those people. It's the Yom Kippur Katan people who didn't move it to Thursday. Okay. This is interesting because I don't think that this has completely gone away, this custom. Does anybody have a custom here to fast on a yard site for their father or their mother? For a parent that's fast? Okay. I haven't fasted from the yard sites of my father, but this one I don't believe has gone fully away. I do believe that there are some communities where people do a personal fast day on a yard site for a parent. It is a custom that's already mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch. It's actually the way that we know how to answer the question. People ask this month, when is the yard site? Is it Adar Aleph or Adar Beis? When people have an Adar yard site, when the person passed away in a non-leap year, how do you observe it in a leap year? So the Shulchan Aruch says that you observe the fast day for your parent in Adar Aleph. And but you would also still acknowledge Adar Beis, but you wouldn't fast. The Ikar yard site day in such a situation is Adar Aleph. Why is a different question. Adar Aleph as opposed to Adar Beis. I don't want to get into calendar questions right now, but that custom, that discussion is how we know how to answer the question about which day, Rabbi, do we say Kaddish on, and which day do I, leave the Sibur if I'm davening from the Amud.
Rabbi Rubenstein and my father-in-law said you say Kaddish on both days.
Correct. That is correct. That's the halacha. But the day that if you are to lead the davening, you only get to lead the davening on the first Adar. The second Adar, you would just say Kaddish, but you wouldn't take precedence over someone else for leading the Kehillah, unless it was, of course, an Adar Beis yard site. But then you would only be fasting once, anyways. Fantastic. You'll only be observing it once, anyways. Okay, so or you have a yard site. Oh, it's Chaf Sivan. I forgot to look up what's the 20th of Sivan. There's a fast down the 20th of Sivan, and now it's eluding me. Anybody remember what the 20th of Sivan is?
Yeah, that came up a lot. There's some disaster that occurred in Poland, in some towns there, and that's.
So it's okay. So the 20th of Sivan. Okay, that's not unprecedented. The 7th. Right. It's a forgotten fast day. Okay. Yeah. And it's 1648. Wait, is this the Chmielnicki massacres?
I don't think so.
No.
But
okay.
I could be wrong.
Okay. No. You're probably right. It's a lost fast day here. I see that dates back to 1171, based on a blood libel. That's why I see. I did quick research. So it was apparently a blood libel, and Jews were slaughtered on the 20th of Sivan in France. And so there's some people had a fast day. If you want to see a list of fast days that we don't observe, go to Siman Taf Kuf Pei, and you'll see a lot of different fast days historically from tragedies that happen. So if any of these days they fall, let's say on a Friday, you can't control what day the calendar falls out. So what do you do? So if you do this once, you fast. Let's use the yard site for example, because I do think that that's not something that people. I don't think that that's something that people. Again, I think it's a custom that's out there now. It's not like it's gone these days. Let's say somebody fasts on a Erev Shabbos yard site, and they fast until Tzeisak Kochavim. Then you have to do that forever. That's like all these examples that we gave before. To be sama calls bunch of hisla beferish. Shein dato lahashlim tamid. Reading the dato lino kein leolam. So if you, unless you actually say that you're not going to, anytime you don't stipulate that you're not going to complete the fast, so then, clearly in your mind, you probably have in mind that you're going to complete the fast. If, let's say, in the beginning, when you start fasting for yard sites in general, right, it falls out on a Wednesday, it doesn't fall out on a, right, or Erev Rosh Chodesh, you start taking on this Yom Kippur Katan minhag. Ushar ta'anesim hanis karleil chal b'chol, and it falls on a weekday. Uvachol halom mashlim. Of course, on a weekday you're going to complete the fast. There's no reason not to complete the fast. V'alkein yesh poskim the sfir lehuda afilu k'shiyera achar kach the erev Shabbos gam kein tzarich lahashlim at tzisik u'chavim. Then when it falls out on Shabbos the next time, then you have to complete the fast until tzisik u'chavim. The misama dato lehisnaheg kein tamim, because misama you had in mind that okay, I'm going to do this every time that whatever the day the yard site falls out. Unless you say at the beginning of the first time when you fast, I'm not going to do this every time, let's say every year, or I'm not going to do this when it falls out on a Friday, I'm not going to fast in general. Some argue and say no, that the stam position, that the standard position would be, of course, I didn't have in mind that I'm going to accept this all the way till Tzesek Kochavim on Shabbos. Therefore, if the fast is difficult for you at that particular juncture, you can rely on the lenient opinion of you can eat right after shul is over, even if the sun is still shining, because you accepted Shabbos early. Now, let's go back up on top. Shulchan Aruch says, last part of this siman here, V'im hu b'tanis chalom. I'm going to spend a few minutes on this and then I'm going to move on. V'im hu tanis chalom, tzarech lehisanos ad tzesek kochavim. If what fast day is being described here is a tanis chalom. Does everyone know what a tanis chalom is?
You have a bad dream or something, or yeah.
Excellent. There was a horrible dream, and it portended it, whatever this means, it moved you in a certain way. It shook you in a very awful way. Something bad happened in your dream. You woke up, you remembered it. It frightened you. So the practice is that you're supposed to fast. To be mevatel whatever terrible gzera may have been portended by the dream. Again, I don't know how we relate to this in general today. I cannot say that I've ever fasted for such a thing. I assume that I had bad dreams. I probably just don't wake up from them. But let's say this happened, and you were shook by this, and you want to take on a fast day to be mevatel the bad decree. So it happens to be you had the dream on Thursday night into Friday morning. So you have a fast day to try to deal with this dream that you just had. So you would, in that case, you should complete the fast day up until Tzeisak Kochavim. Why? Take a look at the Mishnah Berurah here. Even the Yesh Omrim opinion, who is lenient, would say you have to fast until Tzeisak Kochavim. If you wake up on Shabbos morning, the halacha is Shulchan Aruch, by the way. We'll get to it, I think, later on in Hilchot Shabbos, or maybe it's in Hilchot Tanis, I don't remember. You wake up on Shabbos with such a dream, you fast. You don't have Shabbos, you don't eat on Shabbos, no lunch, no shalosh shodis, nothing. So if you're going to fast on Shabbos, it makes a whole lot of sense logically to say that, you should complete the fast on Friday that, takes up a few minutes on Shabbos. That's where we'll deal with this. Certainly you should fast all the way till dark on Friday. There are some who argue, no, that's if you fast up until after shul is over, that's called completing the fast. And I think those people are saying, no, the day has changed. It's no longer Friday. Yes, the sun is shining, but that's the power that you have when you accept Shabbos, is that you can change the calendar day for halachic purposes. So that's why they would probably think that it's a completion. Aval ha'achronim, his scheme with what the later authorities all agree, with the Shulchan Aruch, you shouldn't be lenient on this. Why? Because what's the issue here? It's a matter of sakana, that there's a real threat to your well-being because of this dream. The kevan shu mipnei sakana levatel ulevar chalom ra. You have to cancel out and to burn and to destroy, the bad dream, right? Levar, like biur chametz. You have to exterminate that dream. Shema lo yoya levatlo im lo yashlim alalayla. Maybe the fast won't help you unless you really fast until the very last minute. So you can't take any chances and cut the fast early when it comes to a tanis chalom. I'll leave it at that. I don't have much more to comment about a tanis chalom. What am I supposed to say? A tanis chalom is a tanis chalom. I've never heard of a person that, in my lifetime. Again, I'm my mid-30s. I've never heard someone take on a tanis chalom. I have never heard of anyone remotely discuss taking on a tanis chalom. And I'm aware of people having had bad dreams. People don't usually share them with me though. But it's a normal human experience to have bad dreams. I don't know what qualifies for a tanis chalom versus not. It probably is very much a subjective thing. It's how you experience things. And if this halacha doesn't speak to you, then my guess is that throughout your life, you're never going to do a tanis chalom. That's reality. It's probably how we all perceive it, how we take it. In more ancient times, like perhaps that a dream was seen as some sort of divine communication. In a more, obviously, you look at the Torah. Joseph had the dreams and whatnot, and I think until probably a certain point in history, dreams and you see. By the way, the last chapter of Maseches Brachos, a whole chapter almost is devoted to dreams and to understanding the dreams and interpreting the dreams and what does it mean. And so, the world, I think, put a lot more stock in dreams than maybe we do. So I look at this and I kind of scoff a little bit, I'm being honest, but, for a certain person in a certain context, this was an important halacha. So I'll leave it at that. I wish everybody